The sunrise of the 1990s marked the beginning of an innovative digital era, which merged computer software with physical instruments and combined them with the previous decade's most notable elements. The rejection of mainstream culture and the exploration of the luscious and atmospheric sides of sound led to the creation of revolutionary new genres. Some of the most influential figures of this sonic scene include A.R. Kane, My Bloody Valentine, Cocteau Twins, Slowdive, Seefeel, Chapterhouse, and Brian Eno, who was also a role model to most of the artists mentioned. Electronic music dates back to the early 20th century with the creation and experimentation of electronic instruments. Early innovations ranged from tape manipulation to the creation of synthesizers. By the late 1980s, genres like ambient dub and techno emerged, marking pivotal moments in electronic music's evolution. These subgenres would soon contribute to the burgeoning shoegaze movement that was also evolving at the same time. The blend of shoegaze and electronic music dates back to 1988, with My Bloody Valentine incorporating drum machines and manipulated sounds into their signature wall of sound. Several years later, the 1990s saw the birth and development of rave culture, an electronic music subculture that quickly gained international traction. As rave culture grew, it became synonymous with electronic music, underground scenes, and vibrant all-night dance parties.
Here we go.
Around this time, My Bloody Valentine released the Glider EP, an important transition for the band. Glider pushed the bounds of the band's sound past just using effect pedals. With its inclusion of dance-like beats and rhythmic loops, it attracted the attention of Andrew Weatherall. Weatherall was an electronic producer who would later be known for producing Primal Scream's Screamadelica. His remix of Soon emphasized the dance-like rhythms while stripping back the dense guitars, pushing it fully into dance music territory. The Glider EP remixes built a steady bridge between the worlds of electronic and shoegaze and influenced the trajectory of both genres. But the Glider remixes weren't the only instance of electronic producers remixing the work of shoegaze bands. Other bands such as Curve and Lush also collaborated and commissioned electronic artists, leading to Falling Free, the Aphex Twin remix, and Undertow Spooky remix, respectively. Mark Clifford wasn't intentionally attempting to create the first band that fused shoegaze music with electronica. However, through instinct and a wide range of influences, Clifford's group Seefeel would create a truly unique sound. Seefeel is a British group that formed in 1992. Originally a quartet, the band had a traditional lineup, with Darren Seymour on bass, Justin Fletcher on drums, Sarah Peacock on vocals, and Clifford on guitar. Their influences included dream pop groups like My Bloody Valentine, Cocteau Twins, and Spiritualized, as well as krautrock groups like Faust and Neu! It is remarkable to read the eclectic list of labels that have been used to describe Seefeel's music, including post-rock, ambient techno, shoegaze, dub, and downtempo. What is most consistent about their music is the creation of atmosphere instead of a three-chord song structure. Seefeel would be signed to Two Pure Records and release their debut EP in 1993. Primarily an instrumental project, More Like Space sounds hypnotic with looping guitars manipulated to be unrecognizable, sort of whooshing past you like a warm breeze. Each of its 4 tracks has its distinct sounds and styles. For instance, Blue Sleep Easy probably falls closest to dub music, with a grooving bass and a buzzing guitar sound that creates dissonance. Seefeel debuted their first studio album later that same year entitled Kike. Recorded around the same time as More Like Space, Kike has more of an elaborate, enigmatic sound. Just listen to a track like Plainsong to hear a constant shifting of rhythms over manipulated guitar flourishes and obscured vocals. In Seefeel, Mark Clifford succeeded in his desire to create a sound that couldn't be pigeonholed to one particular scene or movement. As of the recording of this video, the group is still active, releasing 4 studio albums. Interestingly, both Cocteau Twins and Aphex Twin were fans of Seefeel, which is quite a testament to their ability to transcend genre. By the time 1993 rolled around, shoegaze was going out of fashion. As Britpop swept through the UK, bands like Suede, Blur, and Pulp offered a sound that consisted of bright melodies that harkened back to the 1960s. Transcending music, the Britpop movement was cultural, a declaration of British pride. It was a bold response to the grunge movement occurring in the US around the same time, as British musicians like Blur's Damon Albarn began to resent the American influence traveling overseas. While shoegaze may not have been the direct catalyst to the rise of Britpop music, it was swiftly sidelined by the music press. Many of the original shoegaze bands either disbanded or joined the Britpop movement. However, there were a few groups who decided to stay together and not follow the Britpop trend. Rather, they adapted their sound by incorporating electronic qualities into their music. Perhaps the two most prominent groups who made this transition were Chapterhouse and Slowdive. Chapterhouse would release their second studio album, Blood Music, and it was a far cry from their pure gaze debut. Blood Music embraced danceable psychedelic elements, which included sounds influenced by the baggy scene. She's a Vision is a prime example of this. The guitars still have the density of shoegaze music, but the percussion is much more danceable. Blood Music was further adapted later that year by the electronic duo Global Communication. It was created at the request of Chapterhouse's vocalist Andrew Sheriff, who called Global Communications Tom Middleton and asked if the group wanted to remix the album. He enthusiastically accepted, and the duo reworked 5 songs in the album into something unrecognizable. It was entitled Pentamera's Metamorphosis, and it turned Blood Music into what sounds like a spacey sci-fi ambient album. While Blood Music has a noisy, danceable sound, Pentamera's Metamorphosis has a stripped-back, soothing sound that makes you want to float eternally in outer space. Around the same time that Blood Music debuted, Slowdive's Neil Halstead made his foray into electronic music. In 1992, Halstead experienced an eye-opening moment when Seefeel's Mark Van Hoen introduced him to Aphex Twin's selected ambient works 85 to 92. That same year, Slowdive collaborated with legendary Brian Eno to record their second studio album, Souvlaki. A year later, Souvlaki was released and coldly received by the music press, and Slowdive quickly fell apart. Regardless, Neil's interest in electronic music flourished, and he began experimenting with loopers and digital technologies. This resulted in the 5 EP in November 1993. One can hear these lush ambient soundscapes that are quite gorgeous at times. Though it was released just a few months after Souvlaki, 5 EP sounds nothing like a previous Slowdive project. Perhaps the only recognizable quality the EP maintains is Rachel Goswell's vocals. Slowdive's third studio album, Pygmalion, would continue down this electronic path, albeit in a more minimalistic style. Debuting in February 1995, Pygmalion was released well past shoegaze commercial peak. It has sort of a mysterious, ghostly sound. Halstead's experimentation with loopers is still present, but it sounds far less lush and textured than 5 EP. Slowdive was dropped from their label a week after Pygmalion. Remember how we mentioned that Seefeel was influenced by Cocteau twins? Mark Clifford would receive an exciting call from Cocteau twins Robin Guthrie in 1995. Clifford would recall that, quote, Robin rang up and said, "Would you like to come and do some work with us?" He took us to this little room with all these tapes of every Cocteau twins track ever. He said, mix 2 tracks off the new album and pick whatever 2 tracks you want from the back catalog. What's wonderful about this project is that one can still hear Elizabeth Fraser's gorgeously ethereal soprano voice, but with Clifford's creative hand in the mix. Like his work in Seefeel, Clifford's production techniques evade any particular genre. There are elements of down-tempo, ambient music, and techno. It sounds more rhythmic than a typical Cocteau Twins track, but still has their trademark gossamer sound. In the Otherness version of Cherry Colored Funk, Clifford was able to take just one line from the original song and make it into a compelling 5-minute remix. Like Chapterhouse and Slowdive, Cocteau twins were nearing their disbandment when they began to explore electronic music. Thankfully, Otherness would be released 6 months right before their final studio album. As previously mentioned, shoegaze had long been sidelined by the mid-90s. At the same time, a new genre of electronic music was becoming increasingly popular in the UK. The genre fused down-tempo beats with a darkly atmospheric sound, often implementing jazz, R&B, and dub into the mix. This created a slower, surreal style of electronic music that was vastly different from the fast-paced breakbeat scene of the early 90s. This genre is called trip-hop, and it was spearheaded by groups like Portishead, Massive Attack, and Tricky. Even though shoegaze was pretty much as dead as disco by the second half of the 90s, there was one group that fused the genre with a thriving trip-hop sound. In November 1996, Bowery Electric released Beat and was well received for its innovative sound. The album contains bass-heavy trip-hop beats paired with droning reverberated shoegaze guitars, like Portishead but with dense guitar loops. It creates a dark psychedelic sound, creating the imagery of driving through an unfamiliar gloomy city at 2 a.m. Bowery Electric was able to pull off this captivating combination of sounds, proving that shoegaze did have a place in emerging electronic trends. As the public interest in shoegaze faded, some of the most experimental and sonically interesting branches of the genre thrived. What's fascinating is that despite dating back around 2 decades, numerous records created during this period still sound futuristic due to their sheer innovation and uniqueness. Many of the bands emerging at this time had a common trait. They pursued their projects more intuitively rather than creating a project that neatly fit into one genre. One of these bands was Sweet Trip, founded in 1993 by Valerie Cooper and Roberto Burgos. If you look at the catalog of bands that inspired them, you'll find everything from Aphex Twin to Slowdive to Michael Jackson to Iron Maiden. While you might not distinctly hear all these influences in their music, it shows that they were extremely open-minded and into all sorts of styles. Sweet Trip soon abandoned the idea of being a band with a standard lineup consisting of a vocalist, guitarist, bassist, and drummer. Instead, they began recording demos on a 4-track, shifting more into IDM and ambient territory. Some of these songs would later end up on their debut album, Halika Bliss Out V.11. This album drives distortion to a maximum level, but unlike their shoegaze predecessors, the focus wasn't primarily on dense sound walls. Instead, they create soundscapes that alternate between sparse IDM beats only accompanied by glitchy bleeps and distant reverby guitars, or the occasional washes of what can best be described as sheer waves of sound. Songs like Fish or Pulse transition through all these stages, slowly pulling you into what feels like a pixelated surreal ocean. Both Cooper's and Burgos' vocals are deliberately obscured and unintelligible, adding to the aura of listening to the distorted echoes of a song while you're already in an alternate reality. Sweet Trip continued their career in this realm, gaining greater critical acclaim later on, particularly for their second studio album, Velocity Design Comfort. They released their final album, A Tiny House and Secret Speeches Polar Equals, in 2021. A band that falls in a similar vein as Sweet Trip but unfortunately never received the same level of recognition is The Sleepwalk. Founded in the early 90s in Japan, they began releasing a series of albums in the early to mid-2000s, with 3 of them simply titled Phantasmagoria 1-3. There are moments on these albums like Music Plans or In W Colored Haze, where the deafening walls of sound become so dense that it feels like you're being sucked into a portal to a different dimension. On some songs, the audio is so disfigured that it leaves an almost eerie sensation, as if reality is warped beyond recognition, while others feel warm, hazy, and comforting. The Sleepwalk managed to encapsulate a vibe that bears a resemblance to vaporwave, long before vaporwave culture even became a thing. Yet another band from Japan that should be mentioned is Co-Alter of the Deepers. They're notoriously difficult to categorize as they've explored about any genre you can think of, with shoegaze and electronic music being just 2 of the many. Throughout their discography, you'll find everything from classic J-rock tracks featured in anime to funky jazz breakbeat and even touches of oriental music. Their 2001 album, No Thank You, leans more heavily into their electronic influences, though the album structure feels like a microcosm of their entire work. It's deliberately erratic and undefined, with constant jump scare-like transitions from Deftones-like guitar chords to trancey dance tracks, and from playful soft vocals to intense screams. Just as the genres shift unpredictably, so does too the mood with every song. While we're admittedly leaving out a lot of notable names here, there are at least two more that we want to mention. One of them is Ulrich Schnaas, a German producer who, after releasing ambient and electronic music under various pseudonyms, shifted his sound when he began releasing music under his real name. His album, A Strangely Isolated Place, still retains electronic elements but is far more guitar-driven compared to his previous projects. Songs like Gone Forever and Clear Day are prime examples of why genres like IDM and shoegaze blend so well together. They both seem to follow the same idea of altering your state of mind, creating something surreal and vague, almost dreamlike. A band following a similar path is Mallory. Their album A Third Face features songs that could easily pass as traditional shoegaze or indie rock, with analog drums and vocals that are at least discernible, as well as moments that drift into ambient techno or even trip-hop. While Mallory is technically still active, they've rarely toured outside their local area in Germany and haven't released an album in over a decade. Like many bands from that era, it makes them something of a best-kept secret in the scene. By the mid to late 2000s, internet music culture kept growing, setting the stage for new trends and fueling the revival of seemingly forgotten bands. As playlists featuring shoegaze songs began circulating on platforms like MySpace, a generation of chronically online people started to rediscover the genre and its beauty. Shoegaze suddenly wasn't uncool anymore, and a resurgence began to ignite that would continue to grow in the following years and decades. This revival not only brought new love and recognition to previously overlooked bands, but also inspired a wave of new artists who took the genre to new heights. While shoegaze had already become a global phenomenon, most of the bands we've discussed so far originated in Europe and Asia. However, the United States soon developed its craze for shoegaze. One band that emerged from this second wave of the genre is the Deprecation Guild. Formed in New York in 2005, founding member and main songwriter Kurt Feldman was both a music nerd and a huge retro gaming geek. This led him to draw equal inspiration from dream pop, new wave, and shoegaze bands like Cocteau Twins, Talk Talk, and Pale Saints, as well as the 8-bit music from the video games he loved. The Deprecation Guild's two full-length albums, In Her Gentle Jaws and Spirit Youth, weave these influences together using distorted guitars alongside chiptune sounds generated from an NES sound chip. Their brief discography feels like an escape into the nostalgic world of staring at the pixelated screen of your old Nintendo. After a relatively short time together, the members of the Deprecation Guild moved on to work on other projects such as The Pains of Being Pure at Heart, Wild Nothing, and Beach Fossils. However, a reunion was announced in 2023. Around the same time as the Deprecation Guild from New York, a band from Philadelphia called A Sunny Day in Glasgow began carving out their niche. While the occasional distorted guitar can be found, their debut album, Scribble Mural Comic Journal, is mostly rooted in dream pop and ambient music. It disguises vocals that could have easily suited a pop song beneath pebbly beats, often overlapping in ways that create a trippy dub-like effect. It's the kind of album that manages to feel soft and carefree despite being drenched in a sea of effects, especially in its first half. As the album progresses, it becomes more abstract, gradually shedding its pop sensibilities, only to circle back to a more whimsical sound towards the very end. Arguably, one of the biggest names on our list is M83. With founding members stemming from a post-rock background, the project fittingly named after the macer 83 Galaxy moved towards a more spacey and electronic sound. This sound arguably reached its peak with their most acclaimed album, Hurry Up, We're Dreaming. According to the songwriter Anthony Gonzalez, the album is in fact about dreams and how we dream differently as children. Reflecting on his past and the twists and turns life takes sometimes, it feels very much like you're reliving someone's youth. The album is accompanied by wistful spoken word passages, shimmering orchestral landscapes, and at times even danceable synth-pop melodies. Midnight City even made its way into nightclubs, which is quite a rare feat for a shoegaze-influenced track. Shoegaze, without a doubt, has been successfully revived and is now more popular and accessible than ever. Spotify shared statistics with Stereogum that show shoegaze experienced a remarkable revival. From November 2022 to 2023, shoegaze streams increased by 50%. This resurgence has been propelled by the rise of digital platforms like TikTok, Bandcamp, YouTube, and even Rate Your Music, which have allowed both legacy bands and emerging artists to reach global audiences. Shoegaze pioneers such as Slowdive, Pale Saints, and Drop 19s have found renewed appreciation, with their once cult followings growing into larger, more diverse fan bases. Meanwhile, newer artists like Jane Remover, Quanic, and Paranol are pushing the genre into fresh experimental territory, blending shoegaze with hyperpop, bedroom pop, and other electronic influences. While classic bands tend to stick to a traditional rock instrumentation, it is not uncommon to hear shoegaze that has been created entirely with just a laptop. A key aspect of modern shoegaze production is the heavy use of digital tools to emulate and evolve the genre's sound. While traditional shoegaze relied on analog effects like reverb and delay pedals, modern acts often embrace a DIY aesthetic, using software like GarageBand or FL Studio to build their dense textured sounds, resulting in a rough yet emotionally potent style. The focus is less on polished studio quality production and more on creating a visceral, immersive atmosphere that resonates emotionally with listeners. Digital plugins and DAWs, digital audio workstations, are used to layer, manipulate, and enhance their sound. This allows for a more accessible production process where even bedroom artists with minimal equipment can achieve the lush, overwhelming soundscapes typical of shoegaze. Paranol is a testament to this. The anonymous South Korean bedroom artist has gained attention for his deeply personal and immersive music, made largely with limited home recording equipment. His production style is heavily characterized by layers of distorted guitars, melancholic synths, and distant muffled vocals that create a wall of sound while maintaining an intimate lo-fi quality. In an interview with Cinemic, Paranol states, "I could make the sounds I wanted even if I used it as a virtual instrument. My guitar skills are very terrible. Also, I had to keep as quiet as possible. That's why I made music only with one computer in the bedroom. I wanted to make a sophisticated lie rather than the unfinished truth." Albums like To See the Next Part of the Dream embrace the imperfections of bedroom production, using reverb, fuzz, and distortion to craft sprawling emotional atmospheres that feel both expansive and deeply personal. But Paranol is just one of many artists who is a part of a bigger scene, known for crossing paths with the not-too-distant scenes of digicore and online cloud rap. The digicore scene, a rapidly evolving music genre, blends elements of hyperpop, emo, trap, and internet-based subcultures like cloud rap and glitchcore. Digicore is characterized by its eclectic, boundary-pushing sound, which typically includes heavily auto-tuned vocals, experimental production, fragmented beats, and an embrace of digital aesthetics. This unexpected but surprisingly great blend seems to resonate with a younger audience. Maybe our lack of an attention span and fried brains have us grasping at anything that slightly intrigues us, or maybe the future is upon us. Jane Remover, an electronic producer from New Jersey, has released music under several pseudonyms and is no stranger to electronic music blends. She pioneered the Darya-core microgenre, which is closely related to hyperpop and pulls from influences like breakbeats, popular culture, and even Jersey club music. Jane's music feels a little more refined than other artists following a similar path. With the release of Census Designated, Jane Remover's ever-expanding vision feels bigger than ever. Pitchfork describes her sound as hitting like a flash flood, following moments of dreamy calm with clattering downpours. It's a feverish mutation of shoegaze and bedroom pop. Parallel artists include label mate Quanic, who follows a comparable blend of shoegaze, hyperpop, and other various influences. Similarly, other modern shoegaze acts such as They Are Gutting a Body of Water and Full Body 2 blend the atmospherics of shoegaze and also keep the integrity of the genre while adding energetic electronic elements that pull from drum and bass, jungle, Jersey beats, and even reggaeton. But what really ties these artists together is their shared rejection of conventional genre labels, opting instead for a fluid internet-based approach to music that mirrors the fragmented nature of digital communication. This interconnected scene reflects the modern musical landscape where traditional genre boundaries are blurred and the internet has become the primary vehicle for artistic experimentation and distribution. This brings us to the end of our journey. From the early days of My Bloody Valentine pushing boundaries with drum machines to the innovative soundscapes of Seefeel and the genre-blurring work of modern artists like Paranol, we've seen how these two genres have intertwined and evolved. Shoegaze may have faded from the mainstream in the 90s, but its influence never really went away, finding new life in electronic music and inspiring a whole new generation of musicians. Before you go, we want to hear from you. What do you think of this blend, and what's your favorite electronic shoegaze release? If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment below, subscribe, and hit the bell button if you want to see more content like this, as it massively helps our channel. Before we conclude, I would like to give a shout out to our patrons, Clueless, Hating XWX, Jim Veneria, Nicolas Cabello, Henry Hoyt, Andrea Leon, and Craig S. Style. Thank you guys so much for your support. Stay dreamy, everyone.